Hello and welcome to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis, and as always, I am your host. Okay, so this might be a bit of a packed episode. There's a lot going on, a lot to unpack, and honestly, some reviews that I wish I didn't have to do because I don't think that they're going to turn out that great. But let's get it moving. We have some interesting movie news to announce. So first off, we have a brand new trailer to Spider-Man Far From Home. If you haven't seen it, I'll be jumping right into spoilers, so check it out first. Honestly, the trailer looks okay. I'm not really excited for it because it doesn't seem to be an actual sequel to Homecoming. It kind of feels like it's more burdened with the task of paying off things from other MCU movies, which is insanely lame. I mean, bring on Vulture, Liz Allen again, whatever they were building up with Scorpion. Those were the things I wanted to see developed, not just a one-off adventure that seems kind of just okay. I mean, the trailer looks fine, but it does look a little bit boring and a misuse of the storyline. We learn more about Mysterio's purported motivations here, however, which led to reactions I feel I have to comment on. We all know that Mysterio's main superpower is that he's a fraud, right? Like, that's his thing. So everyone is calling out the shenanigans when he says that he's a superhero. That makes total sense. That's fine. That's totally understandable. But people are also smugly lording over other people who buy into his jumped multiverses backstory. Like, you think that he's telling the truth about that? My god, don't you know anything? When that's actually kind of one of the few things he can really do. He's actually kind of famous for being able to travel through the multiverse. It was a storyline that inspired a critically acclaimed animated film last year that everyone says they love. So yeah, I feel like people are undercutting that aspect of it. It kind of makes it really likely that he's telling the truth about that at least. And that we can get a 4-way Spider-Man crossover. Just go all out. I wouldn't watch another Avengers movie, but I'd watch Spider-Man 4, aka Amazing Spider-Man 3, aka Into the Spider-Verse 3, aka Venom 2 or something. Just something like that I think would be really, really fun. But, you know, it seems like this could be okay and I'll check it out if it is. Fingers crossed. We also have some new rumors regarding Suicide Squad 2's casting. The first is that Michael Rooker is joining the film in the role of King Shark, which is brilliant. It's kind of fantastic. He could be this movie's El Diablo. I honestly would have preferred him as Peacemaker, but it still works. I hope that he and Killer Croc share every scene together. The second rumor is that Idris Elba's role is being retrofitted into Deathstroke, which comes as a shock given that Joe Manganiello played the role in Justice League, which I kind of felt we all decided to ignore that movie anyway, and it was like a mid-credit sequence, so it was even less important than it might have been. I mean, it sucks for Joe if that's true, but I wouldn't mind it. I mean, if he does it well, then, you know, no harm, no foul. And the last rumor is that Benicio del Toro is being considered for an unspecified role, which, if my guess that the femme fatale alien that they've said is going to be the movie is going to be Duchess, also known as Lashina, then that would mean that he could be Kanto, and he'd be perfect for it, honestly. Try to picture him as anyone else other than Kanto, and you can't. You really can't. So fingers crossed that, you know, this all turns out good and that everything settles down. We hear something really, really awesome coming from this series. And now we get into some more depressing movie news with the report that the New Mutants has been shunted off into 2020, meaning that it will again be the last of the Fox X-Men franchise to see daylight. Gambit, however, has been taken off the schedule entirely and will likely be permanently cancelled. So, you know, pour one out for Channing Tatum. He was passionate about this series. He was passionate about making this movie, so it's kind of disingenuous to really mock him for it. And lastly, we have some funny news. In that after 3 weeks of saying nothing but the pettiest things, many MCU fans have recoiled at James Cameron's statement about how Endgame passed Titanic in the box office. Now, this has some angles to it, especially given his wording choice about how it might have seemed like he was equating the fact that his Titanic was number one, meaning that it was better than the real Titanic, which some people took away from it. And I agree that those wording choices were poor, but it's kind of clear what he meant. If anyone with eyes was actually listening, you would see like, okay, yeah, he's bowing out kind of gracefully. But somehow MCU fans were put off entirely, and that's just the funniest thing because they've been taking nothing but the lowest shots of that movie. And I don't even like Titanic that much. I really don't, but it was just like such a dissonance to it, to the reactions. Because honestly, it's getting old and it's getting really, really tiresome. Moving on to TV news, we have the news that Netflix and Dark Horse have signed a first look deal for properties to make into TV shows and movies, which funnily enough means that Eric Powell totally missed the boat when he decided to bring The Goon and other products back into self-publishing. The Goon movie has been pretty much declared dead for years now, and the humorous thing is that, yeah, Netflix will greenlight anything. So he could have had his chance, and it seems like he kind of missed it, and that's just kind of really funny. I hope for the best either way. I still want to see the Goon movie. I still want to see, or at least hear, the rough cut audio track they had made, and I hope that overall it means that we get some really cool TV shows or movies, released on Netflix, because they're having kind of a drought with that. Fingers crossed. We also have a duo of trailers for shows that got released this week. The trailers to both Legion Season 3 and Watchmen. Both trailers were interesting in their own ways. Legion's trailer shows that the series is planning to head into its finale guns blazing. It's a mad dash to the finish and to the heart of how to solve the David problem. Like, how do you stop a mutant that's so powerful? It's so great to see these characters and actors back. The visuals and set pieces look as fun as they've ever had. And the writing has that acerbic quality to it that always makes it shine, and we see beats and little dialogue takes of that there. It looks fantastic, and I can't wait for more. I really want this season to end on a high note, because the Foxman universe needs to end on a high note, because it deserves to. The Watchmen trailer is just corny as hell. Like, it's way cornier than I expected. It's so goddamn silly looking, and I am all for that because of it. I was expecting something dour or inept or ineptly pretentious, but this is surprisingly lively. It kind of seems like it wants to have fun with the premise and the world it's in, like a vigilante cult based on Rorschach, Veidt doing weird shenanigans in his mansion, cops who have had enough of this shit. It seems like it could be something really entertaining if they go all out with it. I mean, they're trying to make the phrase TikTok threatening and like ominous, and it doesn't work, but because it doesn't work, it makes it entertaining as hell. It looks amusing, and I can't wait for either show to show more. Fingers crossed. Now, lastly, we have comic news, and the only thing we have in terms of comic news is the announcement of Marvel Comics number 1000, which was hilarious on so many levels. Obviously, this isn't the 1000th Marvel comic. It's not even the 1000th comic that Marvel has ever produced. According to them, this was a symbolic gesture for the 80th anniversary. Except, why not call it Marvel Comics 80-year celebration or something? It just falls apart because, well, for one, Marvel has fucked up on legacy numbering so many times before, so using the idea of legacy numbering as symbolism is kind of a laugh riot. Two, this is a clear attempt to piggyback on the press that Action Comics and Detective Comics got when they reached their 1000th. Don't lie. I mean, you could have picked any number. You could have picked a millionth. So it's just biting on the heels of things that have already happened that you've missed your boat on. And three, because it's symbolic, then the title is indeed just Marvel Comics 1000. That's the banner. So you could feasibly and reasonably call this Marvel Comics 1000 number 1. So it just means they got another number 1 out of all this, and that's when I died of hysterics. Apparently the issue will be 80 one-page stories. I wish them well. The cover is a bore though, and barely represents an 80-year legacy. Outside of Golden Age lanky Captain America, which is amazing and brilliant, the cover is, well, really sparse. We have a question from the amazing Medea about this issue that I will be answering at the end of the episode along with all the other questions, so tune in for that. But we're done with news, which means that we can head on into what I read this week. First off, we have The Flash, Year 1, Number 1. I'll just start by saying that I really dislike Williamson's Flash run, and not just because the haze of undercooked ideas, or that it's meandering, or stuffed with needless smothering and dull inner monologues, or that it has so many plot hooks that just generally whimper out for no reason. I mean, those are all valid accusations, but it's not the main reason. The main reason is that he could feasibly write a great Flash run. I mean, I haven't seen someone have this much obvious enthusiasm for writing the Flash since Manapul and Buccellato. Williamson clearly has ideas and a lot of energy for this series and his character and the mythology. Unfortunately, none of this translates. It always ends up being a huge, messy, uninteresting slog. Still, I wanted to check this arc out. I mean, a Flash Year 1, it doesn't sound so interesting off the bat, but it could still be cool. And you have Porter on arts? Hell yeah, of course I was drawn to this. And to its credit, it actually starts off pretty good. There's these wonderful moments that are all strung together. Some really nice, reflective character beats that are calm, introspective set pieces all on their own. I was actually kind of hooked. Sure, I was a bit disappointed in some of the stuff it was retconning needlessly, but it was all well hewn together. And then the narration starts, and then it falls apart so much faster than I thought it would. The narration starts to suffocate the story immediately. Interesting character beats start getting skipped and glossed over, and anything that feels like it could have been substantial evaporates. It's kinda insane. It also then decides to be a time travel story, which has to be the least engaging idea for an origin arc ever. Because who can be invested? It's so bare bones. Let's learn more about Barry instead. Let him shine on through just by who he is. Let's learn more about him in a very taut character piece. That's what made the original year one so interesting, because you got to see all these different angles, and the actions of the characters really illuminated a lot more about them at that point in time. But nope, what we get as Flash fans are just generic and trite. I felt fooled by Williamson once again. 2 thumbs down, simply for lack of effort. Next up, we have Hawkman number 12. Now, this was the finale to the first season of Venditti's Hawkman ongoing, and it was pretty damn good, relatively. It's nothing too complex or really in-depth by way of the character or plot, but it hits the right balance of decent payoffs and fun set pieces in action. We still have this mad melee of every Hawkman imaginable, and they're still having just a really good time showcasing it. Even though he might not have been Nightwing, even Kryptonian Hawkman gets in on the action and just goes to town with his newfound superpowers. It's eminently delightful. The way everything climaxes makes enough sense that it doesn't feel like it was unearned or rushed. Plus, Hitch's arc and the way they decided to present a few beats was also on point, especially when the Hawks begin to merge and everything goes chaotic. It's really impactful, and it really looks fun. A fun visual experience. I guess what I'm trying to say is that while this isn't no Martian Manhunter where every issue is this brilliant character piece, this was a 12-issue mega arc that still worked really well and was still fairly entertaining and delightful and decent. Now, this issue overall was a satisfying conclusion to this main problem, and while I wish it had been more standalone, well, it's gonna be a nice story to go back to. It really will. My favorite part, though, has to be the original Space Barbarian Hawkman asking about Shayera, and that's lovely. I hope that she shows up soon. Patrick Olive is taking up the art with the next issue, and I have the highest hopes. The art previews I've been posting on his social media look fantastic. Fingers crossed that it continues to be a fun, light read, because that's all it is, and it does it well. It's comfortable in being what it is. So 1 thumb up, 1 thumb middle. Moving ahead, we have Lodger number 5. This is yet another finale to David and Maria Lapham's miniseries, and well, overall, I'd say I loved it. I really did love this miniseries as a whole. It's been such a great diversion from this current hiatus that Stray Bullets has been on. Much like Lapham's other creator-owned stuff, it has that same tone of being this perfectly petty, hilarious, dark, crime dramedy mess, but messy in such a purposeful way. The first issue, though, it does kind of suck. Like a whole lot. But from the second onward, it's been one of the best works he's done in a while. This issue, though, it feels like they had maybe 3 issues of content and they just smush it right on in. But it's really great about it. It does feel rushed and maybe a bit too esoteric, which the Laphams have never been shy of, and they have been noted to be cryptic and intimate with their visuals, and other works that they have are rife with that. But here it just feels like a bit of a whimper. It works and it hangs together and has such amazing little beats and moments and pages that are just so striking and so harrowing. It's brilliant. It goes as hard as any other series have ever gone. Although this is already a short story, so maybe there could have been more work on an actual story. As it stands, the conclusion is awesome. It has, well, like I said, these intensely depressing beats, and it could be really great to go back to. I'll need to check it out again. It's fantastic on first read though, and overall, I really love it. I wish this series had been longer, but it's a nice enough trade. Plus, the final pages and panels leave open this interpretation that is this insanely cynical way of looking at things, which helps a whole bunch. Like, it's so perfectly downbeat that I'm gonna be stuck thinking about it for a while now. 2 thumbs up. And finally, we have Wonder Twins number 4, which was not the best issue of this series. I say that knowing that I haven't really liked this mini all that much, and that this might be the weakest issue so far. What I do like about this series so far is that, like all of Russell's work, it has this very biting, scathing absolutely hilarious and witty way of doing observations and commentary. It's just that a few of his works recently and currently Wonder Twins don't have a good balance. They start to feel more tedious than actually entertaining. And it's not the message or whatever, but it's the jarring, stilted, and dragging way that it's presented. It just feels so boring. It stops the story in its tracks every time, and it feels like padding rather than a natural extension of the humor or the entire backbone of the bittersweet comedy that is meant to be highlighted here. There's maybe one issue of this series in particular that has got it right. Every other issue has been this uphill struggle. This especially, because it's almost insanely dull. There's a few good gags, and the message and tone is really great, but overall, it takes this perfectly interesting and fun premise and then decides to pummel it into the ground with tedium. Every time it might get a unique or engaging set piece going, it decides to double down the slow, predictable humor or lecturing. It feels unnatural, it feels forced, and it feels bland in comparison to whenever it does hit hard. It's really difficult to see myself recommending this series in the future. Maybe if the next 2 issues really knock it out of the park, but overall, one thumb down, one thumb middle. And finally, we hit what I watched this week. For the first time in a long time, we only have one thing that I watched this week, which is the ever great Doom Patrol. And the episode is episode 13, titled Flex Patrol. This was an episode that went by surprisingly briskly, and I didn't expect that to happen. This is not a complaint either. I was entertained throughout. I thought it hit every mark it set for itself kind of perfectly, but it blew on by really quickly, which I guess means that everything felt necessary and natural. When you're so utterly engrossed and immersed in a story, that can happen. You just kind of lose yourself in it. And it happens here. Well, I know the spotlight of this episode was the introduction and debut of Flex Mentallo, who is pretty damn good, by the way. It was still really hard-hitting in so many places. Something that it even makes fun of itself for doing, which is just so fun to notice that the show and the showrunners wanted to trip critics up and that they thought that they would. How it handles Rita, Cyborg, and Negative Man is seamless to the humor and the heart of the story itself. The emotions it plays with are taut and take all the breath out of the room whenever they appear. It calls itself a character-focused show, and it is. The scenes we get with those 3 characters just speak volumes to where they were and where they could be with the series when it wraps up in 2 weeks. It's pretty amazing. The humor is also on point. It's not as overt as it has been, but the gags with Flex Mentallo fit in like a glove. He just exudes this corny, gosh darn, and sweet-natured attitude that really helps to sell the other really dark and heavy moments, which even Flex gets hit by. So overall, it's just a really well-rounded episode, and I loved it. The show clearly didn't expect people to vibe with it, but the funny thing is that it's episodes like this that are why it does. There are other series and other franchises and movies and TV shows that try to do the more depthy balance and just kind of flail or don't connect, mainly because they're a bit too niche, but Doom Patrol really hits a universal emotional connectivity, and it works. The cast continues to be great, and this episode is a thrilling reminder of how far it's gone to make us see that, to notice that, and to really connect with that. It's brilliant, and I can't wait for the next episode. It's called Penultimate Patrol, and well, it's gonna be fun to see what shakes up. I am so excited for this show. I really am. It's been a real pleasure. 2 thumbs up. Alright, moving ahead, we have listener questions. Alright, our first question is from the awesome Mitch Gosser on Twitter, and their question is, what's my favorite Pokemon and what's my favorite Digimon? Okay, so hopefully I don't choose ones that totally give away how lame I am, but first off, favorite Pokemon, Ditto. Mainly because every time they used that gag in the original anime series, it was pure solid gold. It continually left me in hysterics. I think there was a musical cue and everything whenever he popped up, which was amazing, and it just left me with my side splitting. It was awesome. So yeah, Ditto. Who wouldn't pick Ditto? Favorite Digimon has to be Wizardmon. He died for our sins, come on. You have to pick him. It's only respectful. He was even trapped as a digital ghost between worlds and in pain, so he went through too much shit. Rest in peace, Wizardmon. And I really wish that there was an actual merch for him that wasn't some statue. But yeah, thank you for that question, Mitch Gosser. I'm pretty sure this was motivated by Detective Pikachu. It's always nice to think back on these because, well, they're really fun characters and so much variety to go through. Moving ahead, our next question is from the incomparable Medea, and their question is, what are my wishes for the Marvel number 1000 thing? Honestly, that the entire thing is actually good. Like, it's an 80-page one-page comic collection with a bunch of writers who might not know how to do that really well. I just want for each page to be a satisfying and fun little story, something worth this really obvious plot for attention. You want to do something outrageous and extraordinary, then you have to actually do it. I'd like to see that happen. Oh, and at least one Hostess Fruit Pie parody and a couple of full-on advertisement parodies, just pages that are nothing but fake advertisements, just to get everything in a mix. It would be a missed opportunity if they didn't do it. Now, it's not as though I want all of them to be Hostess Fruit Pie parodies, because that would be lame, but just one. Just enough to be really funny about it. And overall, I just hope that it doesn't seem rushed and that it actually does turn out to be a cohesive reading experience as a collection on its own. Because who knows, it could just be a random chaotic mess of pages. This is meant to be a publicity stunt. You really need to be something that's going to capture the imagination. One page, I don't think is enough to do that. But we'll see. Fingers crossed. I hope it's good. That's pretty much it. Thank you for that question, Medea. His entire thing has just brought me so many laughs and a lot of introspection about what exactly could be going through their minds about this, because it's really odd. But thank you for the question. I really enjoyed it. Our next question comes from El Bueno, and their question is, who is my favorite SSSS.Gridman girl? Now, if you don't know what Gridman is, it was a tokusatsu show from the 90s. It's about a computer hero, sort of like Tron, who protected these three kids, the internet, and pretty much the world from a bully sociopath with a virus for a friend. And it was amazing. So first off, slight spoilers, I won't do a time code, so watch that show and then SSSS.Gridman, which is the anime sequel of sorts, before listening to this answer, just because they're awesome. And so, my answer to this question is, I guess Tonkawa, not because of anything she actively did. I mean, she's in maybe 2 scenes of the first episode before dying in the same episode, mainly because of what she set out for the show. Just this really dark and uneasy atmosphere, like we learn right before she dies that she has this crush on one of the main characters who apparently doesn't know, and then she just dies and is erased from existence and memories, so no one will ever know. It's not even that she has the crush. I mean, that's okay, I guess. It never really comes into play at all. It's just that it's this offhand personal detail about her, and then it's just deleted from history. Like, you get to know this one intimate thing, and then they're gone. They're just zapped out of existence. It's really off-putting, but in an extraordinarily engaging way. It's kind of insane, but it's also incredibly effective. That sort of makes her my favorite, because she led to this really great underlining of the atmosphere of the show, and it's perfectly done. So yeah, that's my answer to your question, El Bueno. I hope you agree, or at least understand where I'm coming from. I didn't choose any of the other ones because really they just sort of were there in comparison. They didn't really stick out to me past their roles in the story. Meanwhile, Tonkawa is like this insane encapsulation of the show's deaf ear moments. And our last question comes from Akicat on Twitter, and their question is, who would I cast as myself in a biopic? Which is kind of a hard question, but I feel like after some thought, it would have to be Giovanni Ribisi in Brownface. I feel like he could do it justice. And I'm talking about way off in the distance here, because ain't no one like that in the 20-something actor range, because they're all hunks and I ain't no hunk. But Ribisi, he'd be aces. Hopefully in the future there's Latino Giovanni Ribisi walking around, who knows. And also, I don't know why they'd make a biopic about me, but I'd hope it'd be for something good. Anyway, thank you for that question, Akikat. That's probably one of the most outrageous questions I've ever had asked on this show, and I really appreciate that, because when I ask for questions, it can be about anything, just anything relating tangentially to movies, TV shows, or comics, or at least hopefully all three at once. And so that really does showcase that, and I'm really grateful for that question. And I'm grateful for all the questions this week. They're all amazing, honestly. They're all really fun to answer, and I had so much fun doing it. Thank you guys so much. And thank you to everyone else out there who has ever sent in a question or comment or topic. It's been such a great ride doing this, and I am so grateful for all that. It's really humbling, and it just makes the show run. I just love doing it. It's amazing, and it's such a great feeling. So thank you all. And if anyone out there has their own questions, topics, or comments they want to hear discussed on the show, you can find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. I also want to give a shout out to the cover artists for the show at DOTEMCEE. Check them out. They're brilliant. They definitely deserve some traffic on their sites. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope you all had fun listening. I had a great time talking about all of this week's developments with you all. Hope you have a great week. See you again next time.